Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Brooklyn-based jazz drummer and composer Kate Gentile. She opened up about the 2021 CD Snark Horse, done with her collaborator Matt Mitchell. Over the years, she has worked with the likes of Tim Berne, Anthony Braxton, Steve Coleman, Dave Douglas, Chris Speed, and the great John Zorn. She's got a great story. Enjoy.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
First and foremost, I want to talk about your latest collaboration with Matt Mitchell, Snark Horse. And I guess the first question is, it's coming out during this real strange time of a global pandemic. What is it like to have new material out when there's been such limited interaction with the fans over the last, say, year and a half?
Well, we did record it before the pandemic started, so it doesn't feel like a during the pandemic project to us, except for the fact that we were throughout all of 2020, every week, David Torn, who mixed and mastered it, would send us mixes to listen to. So we were listening to mixes a lot that year. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a pandemic project, and it feels good to have it finally come out, because obviously it took so long to mix because of the volume of material.
Ultimately, what do you want the listener to get from this experience? What do you really hope they take from this?
Well, I kind of think about, maybe selfishly, just for us, how we want it to sound, or what it is for us. And then ideally, if we enjoy it, then we just figure that there'll be people less that feel the same way. So I'm not really consciously thinking about what I want people to get out of it. But I think that it's one of those records where you can just put it on and relax, get baked if you do that thing, or whatever zone you want to get into, and just kind of get deep in it. And there's it's this whole world, this whole universe. And I don't think it's one of those things where, I don't know, I think people get overwhelmed maybe when they see that it's 6 CDs, and it's, you're not expected to listen to it all at once. It's just, there's that much of it for whenever you feel like getting to it, and it's all different, and there's so many amazing musicians on it. I'm just really pleased that all these musicians I love that we got to record with. I feel like it's a really good showcasing of their playing, the improvising, and it's like this little universe,
So I guess that's my follow-up question. If you were to come to Kansas City, you were going to present just the material on this album for a live audience, and you had to come up with a way of billing what this show would be. What would be the vibe, and how you just the whole thing. And you would have to pitch it to convince someone to come to the show. What would you say? How would you get them to come in and watch the performance?
I don't know. I'm pretty terrible at marketing, so I'm probably don't have the best answer. Yeah, just that I would just say it's Snark Horse and who the people are, and that's probably just that much, I guess.
So you're based in Brooklyn. Talk to me about where you were born and raised and how all of this music began for you.
I'm originally from Buffalo. I grew up in the suburbs. I don't really know Buffalo, the city, that well. People always ask me about it, and I'm not really from Buffalo, the city. And I started playing drums and getting into jazz sort of in high school, late high school, and went to the Eastman School of Music. It's pretty traditional jazz oriented, but I was also into a lot of less traditional jazz influenced music. And that sort of took me to end up in New York, eventually in 2011. Basically just sort of geographically following where the majority of my favorite musicians on records were. They all live in Brooklyn, so.
So there's always a gateway drug for jazz. What was yours? Who were you listening to, or who did you see that made you think, man, this is it?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one answer to that. I might have gotten into it not in a gateway drug way, weirdly. I know what you're talking about, and I do think that that's really common, but I sort of had to check out a lot of jazz in a way where it was sort of assigned to me as homework, so it wasn't something where, but then eventually it's familiar. But then I think the first record that I really made me just like it regardless of it being this sort of academic thing was a lot of Miles Davis records, like Nefertiti. That one hit me pretty hard. Yeah, from there, then I guess just a lot of the usual suspects of jazz history, Mingus, Coltrane, and then just the less traditional music, people that are sort of more of them alive and working today. Tim Berne, maybe obviously, Jim Black and Chris Speed, Steve Coleman.
What about the very first show that you ever saw live that really blew you away? Whether it was jazz or otherwise, what do you remember about the first show?
I don't remember a first show, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of, it's kind of like a gradual build of like many shows. There's not one that jumps out at me as any kind of turning point.
Talk to me a little bit about what you've learned from the elders that you played with in the world of jazz. What have they taught you that you in turn maybe teach younger players that you're around?
Mario Pavone, actually, who just passed earlier this year, I thought it was really cool. The first time we just did a couple gigs in Baltimore or DC. No, it was Baltimore. Yeah, and at dinner, I never really had a conversation with him before, and I wasn't sure what. I don't typically like hang out and have conversations with people who are like 80. So I was just kind of curious to like what talking to someone of that age would be like, and he was immediately just like, yeah, so I've been listening to Kim Cass, who, is this relatively young, very new, sort of, innovative, really singular bass player. And I was like, oh yeah, he's like checking out the same shit I am. He's like so into the newer music. And I just, it kind of made me, I mean, I kind of already felt that way anyway. Like I don't ever want to not be paying attention to what the younger musicians are doing, but it kind of reinforced that.
What do you like the best about being a professional musician? When you wake up every day and you get to create, what's the greatest part about this whole process?
I like not having to do anything I don't want to do. I like being my own boss and just doing what I want to do, basically. Like I worked in coffee shops for 5 years or so before I was making enough from playing creative music. And yeah, like I really appreciate not doing that anymore, I guess. And also, like, choosing to do that, like, that's also a choice. That's part of it. Like, instead of playing wedding gigs, not having to play music that you don't want to have ingrained in your ear. Like, doing those gigs really, really makes you have songs in your brain that maybe you don't want to have so deeply in there.
Yeah.
And it can be draining when it's something that's like playing music that's more closely connected to what you do creatively, but that's a negative experience. So having a separate job has its benefits. But it's really nice to like be offered a gig and just be able to say no sometimes if the money isn't right, if the music isn't right. That's very freeing, and I feel like I can creatively do whatever I want. I don't feel beholden to any, like I really just don't care what people think in the good way. I mean, it's not like I don't appreciate when people like something, because I definitely do. It's a very freeing sort of thing. And of course there are downsides, there's not that much money at my level right now. And it's, stuff's a lot of work. Like it's not like, some of my friends from high school or whenever it's like, oh, it sounds like you're living the dream. And it's like, it's not, the grass is always greener, and there's always things that are like less great about it that maybe people don't realize, but I'm really happy. Yeah.
Are you starting to play gigs now with things opening up in Brooklyn and around you?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I'm still getting stuff canceled. Like I had a tour in October that got canceled. I have like a couple gigs for the rest of the year. doing a little bit of teaching. But yeah, it's still very slow.
What's it been like to be back on stage after all this time, though? What's been the feedback from you and the audience?
Well, I've been playing a little bit with people during the pandemic, although more remotely. But Matt and I have been playing a lot. We share a rehearsal space, and we live together, so the COVID thing is sort of. We've actually probably been playing together a little bit more, especially just like drums and modular synths. We have a duo gloat meal. That's just sort of. It's not always that instrumentation. But it's basically just anything with Matt and I duo that doesn't fit into another project. So yeah, and I've been composing a lot too at the start of the pandemic. I weirdly, because I never get commissions, I ended up having like a bunch of them right at the start of the pandemic, which helped me get through the pandemic. So that's good. So yeah, I had like 2020 for me was basically all composing. And doing some remote recording with people and with my own band, actually.
Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of you. Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are?
Right. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just another human with some ideas, maybe, hopefully. So I feel like a little weirdo goofball drummer, composer. I don't think that hard. Self-analysis is usually, these are hard questions.
That's a good answer. That's it. I think sometimes there's the idea that it needs to be longer than it is, but that's a perfect answer. Hey, Kate, thank you for opening up about the project and about your life and music. Good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview. We give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Brooklyn, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Kate for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.